I trust that you are all staying well. I certainly hope you are. So, this morning I'm going to be talking about what does it mean to be an Agni Yogi. So I'm just going to plunge right into the talk this morning. What does it mean to be an Agni Yogi? One day, a student asked the mother of Agni Yoga, Helena Rourke, who should receive the Agni Yoga teaching. And this is what she answered. She said initially it should be given to people through attracting them by the joy and the beauty of the teaching, bringing light and joy into their lives. Not to drag them in to get the teaching, but rather give it in such a way that they will dream to come and receive it. Dream to come and receive it. I love that. So this is how Helena Rourke did it. She explained that we should not isolate ourselves from those outside of the teaching, but rather to look for people and yes, talk to them, but not to arrange dinners and lunches for them for the purpose of creating a social relationship, but to have intimate conversations with them about the beauty, the light, the joy of the teaching. This was very impactful for many of us. And not everyone even practices it today. Oftentimes they will use the teaching as a social approach to build friendships. And when we get together for lunch and get together for dinner and so forth, it's not for the teaching, it's for a social exchange of relationship. Some people think, well, gosh, aren't you being kind of stuck up? As well, it depends on the purpose. I mean, you can have lunch, you can have dinner, you can get together and hike. There's so many things you can do socially with one another. But don't put the teaching into that paradigm of understanding. When we gather together for the teaching is for a higher purpose. It is to increase the fire of our life so that we can become more creative beings. It's so that we can understand the purpose of life. And I truly can attest to the fact that it's also very different when you're studying at home or in front of your meditation altar and you're reading some verses out of the Agni Yoga books. It's very different from meeting together in a classroom or when 3 or 4 people gather together in the living room just to discuss the teaching. When we're focused on the teaching, and let's say there's 3 or 4, less than 10 people in the room and you're studying the teaching, you have different points of view of what you've read. And all those different points of view can be right. They're just approaching their understanding from a different level of consciousness or simply a different perception. It's so exciting to get together with people to discuss the teaching. Now, when we intermingle or intersperse, what is the word I'm trying to think? Trying to insert social experiences within meeting together for the teaching, then it lowers the frequency of the whole environment, the room, the atmosphere, the consciousness of those in the room. And those different points of view will more than likely be opinions and bias and based on the person's other, past teaching, what they've brought into the room. So this is why Helena Rourke is saying, don't arrange dinners and lunches when you study the teaching. Study the teaching. Let the purpose for the gathering be the teaching, and then afterwards go out to lunch. Agni Yoga is related to light and energy. It is related to fire and will. Fire is life. It took me a dozen years to understand that. When you first open up the Agni Yoga books and you read so much about fire, and I keep saying, what is fire? I just couldn't put it all together, and then finally I had a revelation and understand now that fire is life. Without fire, there is no life. Fire is livingness. It is purity. It is cleanliness. It is abundance. When we think that fire is abundance, what does that mean to you? It's not, how can I explain it? For me, abundance means creativity. The more fire you have, the more creativity you have. The more creativity you have, the more elevated the manifestations of your creativity is recognized. It's so interesting. And so for me, that's abundance. So when you see people who are dry, they have no creativity in them, then you know that their fires are very low. You know that their abundance is nil. Do you see what I'm saying? So when we say that fire is abundance, see, that's a whole different approach to understanding fire. Understanding fire is life, that's a whole different approach to understanding fire than what Webster's dictionary is going to tell you fire is. So in the world of Agni Yoga, the nomenclature is different, and we have to learn how to move away from the Webster's dictionary, into the Agni Yoga glossary, let's say. So, again, Agni Yoga is related to light and energy and fire and will. Being an Agni Yogi stirs our inner fires and awakens our virtues, our dreams, our visions. And in that process, it awakens us to our life purpose. This is what Agni Yoga does for those who are dedicated to putting it into their lives. Being a practitioner of Agni Yoga ignites the fire within you, the self, which is trying to manifest. Fire also means your inner essence. It is the inner fire that gives light to all human beings. This is why I said Agni Yoga is related to light and energy and fire and will. Light. That inner fire is what gives light to all human beings. And we can see this when you meet someone for the first time. You can see that light or the lack of light in their nature, in their beingness. The more light they radiate, the more that inner fire has been ignited. The more the inner fire, the more awakened such a person is. See, it's a natural phenomenon that's based on the individual striving. So striving becomes a key theme to an Agni Yoga student. Anyway, so this is the first insight into what it means to be an Agni Yogi, or at least striving to be an Agni Yogi. It means that we will be igniting the spiritual fires within ourselves. It means that we will become increasingly responsive to the self, which is trying to manifest itself in all parts of our life, all aspects of our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual life. Agni Yoga teaches that in the beginning, there is only light. This light is called materia lucida. This is a term, it's a part of the glossary of Agni Yoga. Materia lucida. Agni Yoga teaches that in the beginning there was only light, materia lucida. This light slowly penetrated into the mind of humanity. And according to humanity's response and reaction, determined the formulation of that light. Now here's another definition of light. Light is that omnipresent power, the absolute. Light is that omnipresent power, the absolute. The deeper, the more spiritually advanced an Agni Yogi, the more accurately that person is going to translate the light. Wow, translate the light? How do you translate the light? Isn't that interesting to think about? So the light's got to be more than sunlight or, the light that comes from electricity. Light is something that we have the ability to translate. So, in other words, the greater our spiritual unfoldment, the deeper we can penetrate into the light of materia lucida. For example, there's a beautiful story about an old uneducated man living in a cave in a remote mountain, which I've shared this story before, but I so love it. A student would daily climb the mountain to have deep discussions with that old uneducated man. One day the boy asked the old man, "How do you know what is going on in this nation and that nation, in education, in commerce, in finance, and this and that?" Well, the old man said, "There is a substance in the universe which reflects everything that is happening on the earth. If you have a connection with that substance, you can look at that substance and see what is happening in the world." He told the boy, "When you walk down from the valley and go to the village, you're going to see a big tiger." The boy said, "Well, how do you know this?" The old uneducated man said, "I saw in the mirror of that substance." That substance is sometimes called materia lucida, the material of light. See, the more of materia lucida, that material of light, that we have the ability to translate, the more we will understand the purpose of our life, the purpose of life, the causes of events and things, and what is happening in the future. Materia lucida. Now, the higher part, I find this very interesting. The higher part of materia lucida, that means there's a lower part. So there's a lower part and the higher part. The higher part is related to akasha. Everything everything that happens in the world, physically, emotionally, mentally, are the recordings of what you have in the book of God, Akashic records. In the Bible, Akashic records says the book of God. In the ancient wisdom, we read it as the Akashic layer in the universe, which photographs and records everything. The Agni Yogi is a pure person who has a pure heart and has access to this higher layer. So that old, uneducated man living high in the mountain in a cave had the ability to translate that higher levels of materia lucida. And when you meet such a man or woman, and that person knows so much about you without knowing you, you know where that person accessed your information. Because everything about us as a soul is recorded in the book of God, in the Akashic records. So our translation of the light depends on how illumined we are. It depends on how much we can absorb the light and understand it, and then manifest it. To the degree that we can do this is the degree that we can apply Agni energy into our lives. To the degree that we can absorb the light, Agni Yoga is related to the light, to energy, right? To the degree that we can do this is the degree that we can apply Agni energies to our lives. So let's say that you have been studying Agni Yoga for 20 years, and yet you haven't reached the illumination that Helena Rourke had, let's say. And you ask yourself, well, why continue to study? It doesn't happen overnight. Lifetimes of experiences, lifetimes of being on a path that leads us to the heart, because Agni Yoga is the path of the heart, is how we begin to increase the energy of fire, increase the energy of Agni Yoga, and then absorb that light. Does not knowledge of the Spirit discern the light? Materia lucida to the wild spirit is a curling chaos, and this is from the book called New Era Community, paragraph 42. Does not knowledge of the Spirit discern the light? Materia lucida. Materia lucida to the wild spirit is a curling chaos, but for the knowing spirit, it is the harp of light. Between the worlds, thread-like, stretches materia lucida. Only enormous distance blends together the waves of the threads into the vibration of the heavenly rainbow. As I was studying this verse, I couldn't help but think about, the popular physics therapy, the popular physics of string theory. So I spent some time looking up on Google string theory, and I felt like the scientists that are working with string theory today have just like broken through to the perimeter of the true meaning of string theory, that it's there. But they really haven't delved into it yet. It is, so string theory, now I'm going to go back and reread this paragraph. Between the worlds, thread-like stretches, materia lucida, string theory. String theory has many, many dimensions found in cosmos, materia lucida. Only enormous distance blends them together. Synthesis. The waves of threads into the vibration of the heavenly rainbow. The heavenly rainbow is synthesis. The verse goes on, one can begin to strive toward the far-off worlds by following a thread of light realized by the Spirit. This is a very scientific experiment. You see now why I looked up string theory? Yeah, it's a scientific experiment. And as we all know, the teachings are so far ahead of the science of today. And this is a perfect example. As has been said, this is going on in the verse, as has been said, small actions require assistance and apparatuses, but nothing external is needed for a great action. Again, that's paragraph 42 from New Era Community. When great teachers speak about Agni Yoga, they understand it as a formulation of light. Agni Yoga talks about the concealed light within a person, within the planet, within the solar system, and within the whole manifested cosmos. Once you feel a driving search within yourself, you are going to knowingly or unknowingly be responding to the pull of what we call the cosmic magnet, the heart of the universe. This is why we know that the path to Agni Yoga is through the heart. It is related to the cosmic magnet, the heart of the universe. Once we begin to feel this pull, the higher level of our solar plexus becomes activated, and the beginning of the regeneration of yourself occurs. This search within yourself finds you with a deep desire to clean yourself and to purify yourself, aka fire. See how that works together. Clean yourself and to purify yourself is the result of the energy of Agni Yoga, the fire of Agni Yoga. Agni Yoga suggests various practical disciplines to put into your life to help you evolve. But before deciding to enter the path of Agni Yoga, the Master M says, quote, "He who would swim must dive fearlessly into the water. And he who has decided to master Agni Yoga must transform his entire life." Why do people think that they can't accord to the yoga a portion of some idle hour, remaining during the rest of the time in impure thought? Verily, all actions must be infused with the purifying, fiery striving. I love the word verily. Even though it's kind of an old-fashioned word, I love it because that's how Master M taught. He used that word verily so frequently. But this is the point. So many religious people today practice their religion one night or one day a week. They gather together and they pray and they meditate and they take a little bit of this and that teaching out of their tradition and dogma, and that's it. Not everybody, but in general. The Agni Yoga student is one who has moved through that, but has pushed beyond that, and is now positioned themselves where they have decided to let Agni Yoga they're ready to let energy, fire, life, and will transform their entire life. Tell Terry, I couldn't understand that. I can't read that. Excuse me, we've got something going on here.
There's a comment from the webinar.
Oh, co-measurement? Was that what it said?
No, there was a comment from somebody.
Okay.
Question, comment.
Okay, if you can write it down, I can answer that question later. You can tell we're informal here today. It's very strange. So, let me end with Master Moria's words saying, "Verily, all actions must be infused with the purifying, fiery striving. As we study Agni Yoga, we will discover the light, the energy, the fire, the laws supporting the whole creation and manifesting in humanity and the universe." Now I'm going to give you a list of what you're going to be as you approach and then finally get onto the path of Agni Yoga. You're going to be a person who wants to know. You're going to be one who finds the underlying reason for all that is taking place. See, interpreting materia lucida, that higher layer, that higher level of light. As an Agni Yogi, you're going to become a person who has no prejudice, no preconceived ideas, but who has a free and open mind. Do you know how beautiful this is? When I approach somebody and say something and they said, "Yeah, but I thought that," that's a preconceived idea. As we are striving on this path of Agni Yoga, we want to have and to be free and to have an open mind. This is not so easy to do, but we're going to strive to do it. We're going to be a person who does not want to limit themselves with any dogma, no doctrine, no religion. Although we respect them, we respect the dogma, we respect the doctrine, we respect the religion. What we do in our respect is try to find the causes and effects of their existence. So an Agni Yogi becomes a searcher of causes, meanings, and significances. That person will no longer be satisfied with a life lived on the surface, but will search for the depths. You're going to learn that life works through energies and forces and through different planes of consciousness. You're going to learn that the electromagnetic plane, the etheric sphere of the world, is the world of force. The electromagnetic plane, the etheric sphere of the world, is the world of force. The emotional and mental spheres are also levels of force on which you may decide or choose to engage your spiritual, creative work. When you begin to function as an Agni Yogi, you're going to function on the higher planes, within the higher spheres of energy. This is why Agni Yoga is related to energy, see, and life, and fire, and will. These spheres of energy are what Agni Yoga calls the super mundane world. An Agni Yogi is a great humanitarian. Life is sacred for them. They stand for beauty and synthesis, for simplicity, for creative thought, and they have a fiery heart. An Agni Yogi has abundance. They have access to the creative energies of the higher spheres. The Agni Yogi aspires and strives to help humanity, to bring joy to every heart and a smile to every face. So the Agni Yogi is a pioneer. What does that mean to be a pioneer? It means to be a person of the future. They are people whose horizon is unlimited and whose humility is great. The Agni Yogi becomes aware of infinite beauty, harmony, and goodness behind the world of forms. I was thinking, that first verse in Lisa Moria's Garden. The very first words, almost written or penned down. You remember, I am thy bliss. I am thy smile. I am thy joy. I am thy rest. I am thy strength. I am thy valor. I am thy wisdom. When you think about bliss, I am thy bliss. How can he be my bliss? Because bliss is an energy that is radiated from the Great One. When we allow ourselves to be immersed in the energy of bliss, we are immersing ourselves in the blissful energy of the Great One. He says, I am thy strength. When you feel hopeless and in a state of despair, when you're isolated, when you are in quarantine, when you are stuck in your basement like Chris Como, think of Master M's words, I am thy strength. It's so powerful, particularly when you're translating his words through the spiritual triad, through the fiery energy of the higher spheres. Infinite beauty, harmony, and goodness behind the world of forms. Many on this path fail if they try to use revealed energies of the higher spheres for selfish advantages. If they become hypnotists or mediums or black magicians, fanatics, or people who have created or who create hatred and separatism and crime and slavery and many other conditions, they're going to fail. They're going to fall. A higher sphere of energy, higher spheres of energy are known as a fiery world. In fact, 3 of the Agni Yoga books are titled fiery world, volumes 1, 2, and 3. These 3 volumes give us ancient and future revelations about these worlds. At the present, the fiery world includes the higher mental plane, the Buddhic plane, and the Atmic planes. If you want to travel the path of Agni Yoga, you're going to need a pure heart, because the path of Agni Yoga is through the heart. Why a pure heart? In the book Heart, it says, and I quote, "Whoever observes the manifestations of subtle energies knows how the heart is inalienably associated with them. He knows how hard it is among the tigers to rise and carry others into the higher spheres. But this is the labor of those who begin the new world, because even the beginning must be a perceptible one." And that's from Heart, paragraph 292. Rumi knocked on the door of his beloved. "Who's there?" came the answer. "It is I, your lover." "Rumi," he said. From inside came the voice, "Go away, there is no room for the 2 of us in here." Rumi went off to his meditation and prayers. Later, he returned to the house of his beloved and knocked again. "Who is it?" the beloved asked. Rumi said, "It is you." With a welcome, the door was thrown wide open. "I am thy bliss. I am thy joy. I am thy strength. I am thy wisdom." The Agni Yogi is a person who will experience many difficulties as they sincerely try to liberate another human being. Danger, like the tiger, will surround this person every moment. It is not the soul of the person who is dangerous, but the blind urges and drives, their habits, their overwhelming subconscious elements in which they are buried, not to mention all the entities who have an interest in keeping the person immersed in all their blind urges and drives and so forth, because they are nourishment to those or these entities. The moment an Agni Yogi tries to help a person, the illumined one is subject to and can feel the attacks of all these elements. Even the person's karma that they're trying to help will attack them. If the heart of the Agni Yogi is not pure, you know what will happen? They're going to attack back and devour the other person, the tiger. If the heart of the Agni Yogi is not pure, they will attack back and devour the other person. The higher spheres of the consciousness of the Agni Yogi are levels where one lives purely and becomes noble and harmless and self-sacrificial and enthusiastic and dedicated to a great plan. These higher spheres are also known as the higher mind, the Buddhic sphere, and the related spheres where the higher ashrams exist. The study of Agni Yoga brings you closer to these far-off worlds. And let me close with this. Master M instructed, and I quote, "You may ask me what physical exercises are useful in Agni Yoga." He said, "I advise short pranayama in the morning, no longer than 5 minutes. One should abstain from meat except smoked meats, vegetables, fruit, milk, and cereals are always acceptable. All wines are also barred except for curative purposes. Opium or heroin is the enemy of Agni Yoga. The clouds in the sky weigh upon an Agni Yogi. I advise to insulate the footwear with rubber and to walk in the morning, avoiding smoke. With valor. Now remember, that was a word in the very beginning where MM said, I am thy valor. With valor must the various communications of life be received. Since it is impossible otherwise to decide where is the good and where is the bad, he who transmits into life the true yoga fulfills his great mission. Thus before us is the foundation of Agni Yoga. And let me close with this statement to ponder. The spirituality of an Agni Yogi is visible and vital when it embraces every facet of their lives. And that's what it means to be an Agni Yogi.